Hey folks, this is Kelani. With 8.0 quickly approaching and the next expansion shortly after that, I figure pretty much everything we're going to get when it comes down to class changes is set in stone at this point. We shouldn't see any more sweeping changes until the first major patch of Battle for Azeroth, patch 8.1. So how are things shaping up? Well, that's going to depend on what class you're looking at. I figured it wouldn't be a terrible idea, and it might actually help some folks to pick their main, if we had a look at how each class is doing going into the next expansion. We'll go over each spec, how they feel to play, and any prominent strengths and weaknesses that might sway your decision one way or the other. Let's kick things off with Paladins. Paladins can tank in Protection, heal in Holy, or DPS in Retribution specs. While they aren't getting a significant amount of changes to the way these specs play, there are a few key changes which will end up being very important. Let's have a look at Protection. Protection Paladins make good use of their shield, both as a means to defend themselves, but also to use as a boomerang to bounce off a few heads. That's probably the most appealing part of playing a Protection Paladin, watching your shield bounce from foe to foe before returning to your hand, so you can throw it out again. It's definitely a lot of fun. Your Avenger's Shield will also give your next Shield of the Righteous a nice boost to its defensive bonuses, so using them together is going to be pretty important. The other major change for Prompt Paladins is that your abilities which interacted with Consecration have mostly just been buffed, so you don't have to worry about Consecration as much, but using it is still going to be a good idea because our Mastery now reduces the damage we take by a flat amount when we stand within Consecration, so it's still important, but your abilities themselves won't be gimped because you stepped out for a second or two. Laying down some holy ground, throwing around a bouncing shield, and using Shield of the Righteous to protect yourself are the ABCs of Protection Paladin. It plays pretty smoothly right now, and I don't think there's going to be too many issues when it comes to threat. We have a good variety of single target and AoE abilities to help keep threat on several targets. The only thing that can rip off me right now is a Blade Storming Arms Warrior, but I think they're going to be a problem for pretty much any tank at this point. Our rotation is pretty active with only a little bit of downtime. That downtime is usually due to Hammer the Righteous only having 2 charges, not wanting to waste a Shield of the Righteous charge, and Consecration lasting a good chunk longer than it did previously. During that downtime you can recast Consecration if you want, consider your next move, or maybe throw out a heal with Light of the Protector. Sadly our main self-heal is now on the global cooldown, but it helps to fill in a few gaps quite nicely. Now, Avenger's Shield can still reset. It has a chance to reset when you use Hammer of the Righteous or when you avoid an attack. If you get lucky with resets, you won't have any downtime at all. You'll be throwing your shield back and forth all day long. Paladins have some decent cooldowns to help keep them alive while tanking as well, though because one of our main rotational abilities provides some decent damage mitigation, it's important to make good use of it. That's our minor damage mitigation. We also have Ardent Defender and Guardian of Ancient Kings. Ardent Defender is 20% reduced damage with built-in death prevention, and Guardian of Ancient Kings is 50% damage reduction, so one for the small hits, one for the hits that are otherwise going to kill you. Light of the Protector is also part of our defensive kit, allowing us to heal a significant amount of health if we're getting low, and if push ever comes to shove we still have Lay on Hands for an instant 0 to 100 heal, as well as Divine Shield to prevent a death entirely. In a world where tanks are having their magic defenses slowly stripped away, Paladins hold one of the strongest defensive abilities against magic users, Avenger's Shield. While it doesn't silence every target hit, it still silences the first target hit, and it can reset, giving Paladins the ability to constantly interrupt enemies that are trying to unleash a barrage of magic energy at you. It works quite wonderfully in some of the BFA dungeons where, I swear, everything needs to be interrupted. Every mob has a cast or two and they all seem pretty painful. Avenger's Shield has been doing a lot of work on that front. We have quite a few interesting talents which can help with magic damage too. Holy Shield allows you to block spells, providing some decent mitigation over an entire fight against magic damage, and you can also turn Blessing of Protection into Blessing of Spell Warding, providing immunity to all magic for 10 seconds. I think one of the main weaknesses for Protection Paladin is that you only have 2 strong defensive cooldowns, and your self-heal doesn't always do enough compared to its cooldown. You end up being quite reliant on your healer if you start getting overwhelmed. It's a hard fight against the odds on your own. One other thing that I wanted to look at briefly for each spec is some interesting or notable Azurite powers. We have Inner Light, which gives you a bit of extra block, and a Thorns effect whenever Shield of the Righteous expires. Right now this is proving to be quite a valuable Azurite power, giving you a bit of extra mitigation as well as quite a lot of extra DPS. The only catch is that you should be letting Shield of the Righteous drop to activate it instead of trying to keep your shield mitigation going constantly. There's an Azurite power which increases the chance for Avenger's Shield to reset by 20% and grants you a little bit of strength, not as amazing amazing, but getting those extra resets is always pretty satisfying. And then if you want your shields to bounce even further, there's a power which increases the number of bounces to 4 and grants you mastery for each target hit. I think in a light is going to be hard to beat, but extra procs and more bounces is always a lot of fun. Holy Paladins are in a bit of an interesting spot, mainly because not much has changed. Numbers were a little lower early in the beta, so quite a few people seem to have written them off as worthless, but Holy Paladins have always been fantastic healers for more than just raw throughput. The amount of utility they bring to any group would make plenty of healers jealous. They can still heal 2 targets effortlessly with Beacon of Light, 3 if they pick up Beacon of Faith. They can still use Blessing of Sacrifice to help out tanks, Blessing of Protection to provide physical damage immunity to anyone in the group, and Lay on Hands is sticking around for that guaranteed safety net. Honestly, they play more or less like they did in Legion. Very few changes lie in store for Holy Paladins, which to me is a great thing. Holy Paladin works pretty well right now, and I don't see any reason to change huge portions of it. They carved out their little niche as the melee healer, not only standing with the melee, but taking a few melee swings too with Crusader Strike. If you really want to, you can take that one step further now that Avenging Crusader made its way into the talent section. Increase your damage, reduce the cooldown of your DPS abilities, and when you deal damage with Judgment or Crusader Strike, you heal nearby enemies. This might just give Discipline Priests a bit of a run for their money when it comes to dealing damage to heal, at least for the 20 seconds it's active. If this ends up being usable in Mythic Plus, it could be huge for DPS check bosses which also require a hefty amount of healing. I'm excited to see how that plays out. The main weakness for Holy Paladins is still their lack of strong, sustained AoE healing. They can cleave heal extremely well, but you don't have many options if your entire raid is getting nuked and your other healers aren't getting the job done. At the end of the day, I think if you enjoyed Holy Paladin in Legion at all, you're probably going to have fun with it in Battle for Azeroth as well. Not enough is changing to make a significant difference here. You still rely on Holy Shot crits, Holy Light and Flash of Light will remain as your fillers, and if you want some AoE heals, you'll turn to Light of Dawn. Light of the Martyr still allows you to trade health for a quick heal too, so again, pretty much the same as Legion. What is new in Battle for Azeroth is Azurite Powers, so let's have a look at some of those. Healers seem to get a little bit of the short straw with these effects, mainly because they're tailored towards simply increasing throughput. But you can heal allies whenever you throw Judgment at an enemy with Grace of the Justicar, you can increase the range of Light of Dawn to 40 yards to help get your entire raid with Breaking Dawn, and there's some interesting traits on epic gear like Bracing Chill, which provides a buff that increases healing that bounces around your allies, or giving them a little bit of a fail-safe heal which triggers if they fall below 50% health. Nothing super crazy or new, but something is better than nothing. On the DPS side of things, Retribution is doing pretty well as well. There aren't many sweeping changes, most of the differences you'll see come from losing the Ashbringer, but there are some really nice quality of life improvements to the way Ret is going to work in BFA. The first is Judgment being changed to increase the damage of the next Holy Power spender instead of providing a damage window. That means Mastery has to change as well, and it has, back to a simple holy damage increase. So instead of squashing all the effort down into those Judgment windows, you can play much more freely and spend Holy Power as you generate it. It's a minor change, but personally I think it makes Ret flow a lot better. Another change which helps with the flow of Retribution's rotation is Art of War. The talent which allowed auto attacks to reset Blade of Justice is now a passive, and the talent increases the rate of the reset and increases the damage of the blade. That gives us a few other options in the talent section, including Hammer of Wrath. It's been too long since we were able to smite our near-dead foes with a glorious Hammer of Wrath, but now it's returned to us. Let's see if it ends up as a worthwhile talent to choose. While many players and classes will be losing their artifact ability, Wake of Ashes is one that actually made its way into the talent section. So if that's something you are going to miss horribly, you can pick it up again if you wish to do so, or, if it's the best DPS option anyways. All of the problems I had with Ret in Legion have been addressed, so I'm really excited to play it again in Battle for Azeroth. Some other interesting talent changes are Zeal, which doesn't replace Crusader Strike anymore, but increases your auto-attack speed after using Judgment. Righteous Verdict is more or less the legendary cloak come back to life, and then we have Inquisition. This one is going to be interesting. Mainly because these kinds of abilities or talents are either really good or just not good enough to take. With everything slowing down in Battle for Azeroth, at least until we get a lot more haste, Crusade doesn't have quite the impact it did during Legion. Inquisition might inch out ahead, and if it does we'll be spending 3 Holy Power every 45 seconds to maintain that 8% damage and haste buff. It's not the end of the world, and personally I would rather keep that buff up than once again squish all of your damage, all of your effort, into the duration of Crusade. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So what about Azurite Powers? Is there anything interesting for Retribution? I'm glad you asked. The answer is sort of. Zealotry increases the damage of Crusader Strike whenever you use Crusader Strike up to 10 times. That's kind of fun, but might just end up being an annoying buff to keep track of, or something you don't ever need to keep track of because it lasts for 20 seconds. If you're not using Crusade once in 20 seconds, then I hope the group doesn't catch you asleep in the corner. We also have Relentless Inquisitor, which increases your haste whenever you spend Holy Power. That stacks up to 20 times, so these powers have a little bit of a ramp up, but if you can keep them going, they could potentially be quite powerful. I think Protection probably has some of the most fun Azurite powers, but throwing Bouncing Shields all day is pretty hard to beat. Overall, I think Paladins will be in a good spot going into Battle for Azeroth. Protection is proving to be a lot of fun, and perhaps more importantly, a very solid tank. Holy Paladins did well for themselves in Legion, and I expect them to do just as well in Battle for Azeroth, and Retribution is keeping the same feel and flow, but a few restrictions and frustrations are being removed. If you're looking at playing a Paladin in Battle for Azeroth, I definitely give them my seal of approval. What do you think about Paladins from what you've seen so far? Are you going to play a Paladin in Battle for Azeroth? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. If you want to hop on that train, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.